thank you for coming, John, of Glasgow Dog Training. It's been, I was really pleased when you said that you would come and have a
Oh,
chat
my
to
pleasure.
us. I really, really like your work and I like the way you stand up continuously for dogs. So, did you want to tell us about you?
Um, so I've been doing this for 17, probably moving into the 18th year now,
Wow.
professionally. And I didn't get my first dog until I was 28, maybe.
Sure.
And my ex-wife had a dog, and that was my first kind of foray into dog ownership and or guardianship. And there's a picture of me on the beach in Scarborough in 1979, I think. And I remember this. It's one of my. I can remember it. There was a guy standing with his lurcher, and my mum went up and said. So I was petting the dog, and my mum said, "Can we take a photograph?" And I remember standing. The dog had he had a greyhound collar on, and I've got a really distinct memory of the dog's smell in the hot sun, so that kind of musky
Mm.
smell coming off the dog. And I remember and he or she would have been, the dog would have been, their shoulder would have been level with my chest, and just petting the dog. And I've always, like, I've been keen on animals my whole life. Like when I was younger, as a child, I collected animals rather than cars and things like that.
Mm.
And it was just interesting that I've just been reflecting on this, recently. It was interesting that I then circled back to that later in life, and so I did that. I've been doing it for 17 years. I was a police officer in Glasgow for a long time.
Okay.
Uh, so I started my police career as a special constable. So that's a volunteer in 1992. I did that for 5 years, joined the police, Strathclyde Police in 1997, and then I left the police in 2015. And I did various roles within the police, and none of which doing dog training or dog
Mm.
handling. And yeah, so that's the kind of. Oh, and before that, I did. I've got a bachelor's degree in immunology and microbiology.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
yeah. So I did that at university, and I walked away from it, never touched it since. So, but it served me well during COVID because you were able to say to people, when well, I actually have some knowledge about this, and you just the knowledge, the kind of party line of getting vaccinated and wearing a mask and things like that is valid.
Mm.
So yeah, so that's kind of my I've got two adult kids who are 23 and 25, and yeah, that's us.
Amazing. And what brought you circling back round to dogs after the police force?
Well, I started. We had Molly, who was a collie cross, and then we got two mastiffs. Bosco, who was a dog de Bordeaux, and we got a Neapolitan mastiff called Kitty. And I used really harsh training methods. So when I was uh, a balance, well, an aversive trainer, So it was interesting. I was thinking about this recently. It's where's your first influence from? And if that influence hits you at the right time or the wrong time. So we had just briefly, I think I've spoken about this before in my podcast. I was involved in an incident in the police when I was, with this, may have been about 2006, I think, 2007. And it was a public order incident. It had been a domestic assault, and then the guy had effectively, there's more to it, but he effectively had taken his two daughters hostage. And I went up as part of a public order team, and the commander, uh, the negotiating team got in first and got the commander's ear. And when the public order advisor arrived, the negotiator was actually continually steering the commander away from the public order uh, option, which is where it came down to. And long story short, the commander had been massively influenced by the first person on scene. So if we are starting our dog training journey and we get influenced by aversive trainers or balance trainers, and don't question it, and it appeals to, I think probably more importantly, it appeals to how we view the world, then it's easy to be seduced by it. But if you get a positive trainer, and you see their content or you're getting influenced by them, and you are again have a different belief system, then you may be more likely to go down that route. And I think that's a big part of it, you know. And I grew up Catholic, so really moralistic view of behavior, right and wrong. There has to be consequences, you know. You need to be punished for your actions and all this nonsense. And I think a combination, and which I have relinquished. It took a lot of work to relinquish a lot of that. Your need for control. And I think a lot of people buy or adopt dogs because they have little or no control of other things in their lives. And then this is an outlet because everybody wants to be in control of their destiny. And if we're not in control of anything, we'll look at something to get control over. And unfortunately, I think that with a lot of people, that's their dog. So kind of went round the houses on that one.
I love that, and I never expected that. And yes, absolutely. We take our own stuff,
Yeah,
whether we've healed it or we've not healed it, or we've examined it, whether we're self-aware or not, and we bring it into the world, and that is what we use to stay feeling safe.
yeah, yeah.
And that's quite deep for a first question.
I tend not to
Yeah,
do. I hate it's like see small talk and superficial conversation. I'm like, it's
yeah.
so boring. It really is. You know, I'm like, you know, this is the stuff I actually like talking about. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of get that because I went into the military
Okay.
as a very immature 22-year-old, carrying childhood trauma with me,
Sure.
not realizing that that's what was going on. And their
Yeah.
um, training methods were very aversive.
Were
Not
you
not
were you in
not
were you a dog handler in the police
a
in the
dog trainer.
military? Yeah.
Yeah, a dog trainer. They weren't aversive, but they certainly weren't what I would use ever.
Hmm.
It was very much kind of no food, no real big nasty collars or anything. But to me, that was normal. So that works.
Yeah.
I completely get it. Okay, that's amazing. So tell me, was there a dog who showed you to look at yourself?
Yeah. So my partner Helen, who now works with us, we do work together. When I was using when we first started going out, I used prong collars. At the time they were called, it's called a dominant dog collar in quotes,
Mm,
but it's a grot collar, you know. So and just for people listening, it's different from a slip lead. Slip leads are bad enough if we're using them to tighten around a dog's neck, but at least a standard slip lead will loosen up.
mm,
Whereas grot collars are tight and they're designed to be tight and only get tighter. So there's so little leeway in them that as soon as the dog moves against the pressure on the lead, it starts feeling pressure against their neck and throat. The other thing as well to help with this, I do jiu-jitsu. I've done jiu-jitsu for a long time. Um, so I've done martial arts my whole life and I've done jiu-jitsu for 15 years. And so I know how a choking mechanism works, all right, because it's what I do for a hobby is we choke each other, right? Put strangles and chokeholds on each other. So there's you can either strangle against the veins and the arteries in the neck, or you can cut off the air. So those are the two ways that you will submit an opponent, and that's the same as with a dog. Prong collar is different because it only utilizes pain. It doesn't actually get tighter than that is, but it doesn't matter because it's still sore. Uh, so I'd used prong collars, choke chains, grot collars, head collars, lots of corrections. This is when I had Bosco and Kitty, and basically I had made them through a process of classical conditioning, really, really, really aggressive towards other dogs. And they were such sweet dogs, both of them. Bosco really liked other dogs, and I think Kitty just had an aversion to other dogs because of my behaviour around other dogs, because of Bosco's overexuberance. And I started on Helen put me on a journey of a more positive approach. So we were not long into it, and Bosco had catastrophic heart disease, and he died. He went downhill and died within weeks. So I didn't get a chance to resolve his behaviour using positive reinforcement because we had such a short period together. But I remember, and at the time when I think about how rudimentary it was with Kitty, see a dog, put chicken in her face, and at first I was actually pushing it into her mouth. I mean that's how I mean that is aversive, right? But it's how horribly basic it was, right? Chicken, dog means chicken, dog means chicken, dog means chicken, and uh, it started to work. So she would see a dog and then start checking in with me because the chicken would be provided. And then we're probably 9 months into it, and she would have been 5 or 6, I think. And she was 10 stone, 140 pounds, 10 stone a mastiff, 66 kilos she was. And I remember a young border collie girl coming up to her and play bowing, and she play bowed back. And I was like, oh wow, and that what happened as well. I was getting divorced through that period, a few years previous. So and work was horrible as well. And I just wanted peace in my house. So I constantly interrupted their play. Anytime they played, I stopped them. So
Mm,
they actually didn't have that much of a bond with each other and they had really little joy in their lives. And because I needed the peace, and it's just when I look, I reflect on it and think, how appalling is that? But just as we were talking about at the start, if we're not aware of our own stuff, then those around you, including our dogs, suffer the price for that.
mm,
So um, when I started with Kitty, I was like, all right, there's actually something in this. And then and again, it's when you change the model that you're looking, your or the lens or the frame that you're viewing the world through
mm,
changes. And I started looking at it through a scientific lens. At first I understood Pavlov from university. We only briefly touched it in biology, in like sixth year at school and then first year at university. But then started reading more about classical and operant conditioning, and then it just
mm,
went from there. So yeah, I regret everything that I did with them, and I regret not having the opportunity to try and resolve it. You know,
mm,
but I was then I will move through my life and make sure that as best as I can, while accepting that you're human and you fail, that I will do the best that I can with the dogs around me moving forward.
mm. You you have a way about you, John, that I can kind of resonate with. The You have a way that you've done a lot of self-work and a lot of self-acceptance,
Yeah,
and I can feel it. I can feel that just by listening to you speak. Um, and it's beautiful. It's
thanks. That's kind.
so refreshing. It's so
Yeah,
nice to be to see the honesty
yeah.
and the ability to say I did this and I regret it and I do better, and to also maintain the safety in your system while you're able to talk about that.
It's interesting because I go back and forward between stepping up to the plate for those around you, including for the purpose of this conversation, our dogs, um, and recognizing that people are. I remember somebody recently put a quote up and said, "I choose to believe that in every moment everybody's doing the best that they can." I reject that entirely.
Mm,
I turn around and say, if
mm,
that's the best that you got, you really need to do better. Really, you really need to. That's just, I think that
yeah.
it becomes an excuse. So I go backwards and forwards between, yeah, we have to be aware of all the stuff that we've gone through our past, our self-limiting beliefs, challenging those things, and at the same time, and this is where I think things don't sit well. You have to then turn around and say, but you need to do better than that, and you need to step up, and you need to suck it up, and you need to stop moaning about it and just go on with it. You know, and those two things may be contradictory, but I can hold those both those beliefs, and go, yeah, that's fine. And I think, and I'm just, if I'm talking too much, just stop me.
I love it. No, it's fine.
When I'm teaching, I've got my own jiu-jitsu school. When I'm teaching my jiu-jitsu students, there's a massive safety issue because the sport is dangerous. So they can fall over and injure each other. And we're hobbyists, so we're not. It's not a hugely competitive school, and some of our guys compete, but it's not what I'm aiming for. I do it in order to just to do jiu-jitsu for all the benefits of it. The difference is when I say to the guys, so I've kicked people out before, which is punitive, right? It's
Mm,
punitive for them. They're here voluntarily. So that there's if they're here voluntarily and walk through the doors and step on the mats in my school, I turn around and say these are the rules. The difference is then people will say, well, why can you use punishment against your adult learners? I says, well, I don't all the time. In fact, I do so rarely because they're paying my wages to start with, right? So if I
mm,
alienate them all, they'll all leave, which your dog doesn't have the opportunity to do. And the other thing is, I say to them, none of you have to be here. Every single one of you is choosing to be here. Our dogs
mm,
are not choosing to be here. Our dogs have to be here because we make all those choices for them. So, given those differences there, I can then say, yeah, if somebody's been unsafe, I can say, this is your warning. You need to calm down and change your behavior, or you're out because they're one of 40 or 50, 60 students versus your dog who has been unsafe, by through aggressive actions, and you can turn and say, but you've got absolute responsibility for that dog. I don't have absolute responsibility for my adult students because they can
mm.
walk, and have a choice
Yeah,
to do so, whereas my dog doesn't. Our dogs
yeah,
don't.
yeah, yeah. And that's the thing, isn't it? There's so many that don't. Do you have the when you see dogs out and about that you've not got anything to do with?
Yeah,
So you just see them out and about. Do you have the kind of you look and you see a sad dog, or you
yeah,
look and you see an ignored dog,
yeah,
or a struggling dog,
yeah.
and how does that make you feel?
Um, we can't do everything, but we must do our best to do everything that we can.
Mm,
If you were to sit and reflect on the horror of the world, then you would go insane.
mm,
I remember seeing a reference and it was saying that there's more information in one copy of the New York Times on one day than a peasant farmer 600 years ago would have had access to their whole life
mm,
about what is going on in the world,
mm,
right? Now, we are bombarded with that all of the time. And if you were to sit and let that actually reflect on that, you would go insane at the
mm,
level of horror that the world has. We probably have always had these things. I don't know if we've had them to the same degree as we have, the volume, but we're certainly aware of it now.
mm,
So when you have that awareness, you have to do something to put it out of your mind. So when as a dog training professional that can see body language, that can see aversive training methods, harsh treatment, people being unkind to their dogs, we have to have the ability to compartmentalize that. Have to. My opinion is that we have to, right?
yeah.
Because you would go insane otherwise, and I think that's where burnout comes from.
Mm,
And when I worked when I was in uniform on a response police officer for 8 years, 9 years, and I worked in um, a pretty deprived crime democrat or deprived demographic
mm,
sociologically, socioeconomically, and with a lot of crime, a lot of drugs, and seeing that I had to go home at the end of the day and be able to shed that.
mm,
So I probably learned early on in my adult life, and probably before that, the two careers I looked at were the police and the military. Police and the military. So when I was going through my adolescence, I read all the books from like Soldier ISAS and Guy who's at the Iranian Embassy siege, and I read all these stories and then lots of cop stories. So I'd already prepared myself in some way for what the reality of what the job would look like.
mm,
And you then have to go, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with a domestic or a child abuse case?
mm,
How do you deal with seeing a fatal road crash? And you have to have some things for it. And I think that ability uh, and the skill in doing that or being able to do that has translated into my life with dogs. And the pact that I have with the dog, and I say it kind of psychically to the dog when the person doesn't get it or refuses to get it or won't accept it. And I will turn around kind of psychically and say to the dog, I'm really sorry. I've tried my best and it's shit for you, pal, but I need to go on
mm,
to the next one, you know,
mm.
because we can't
Yeah,
save them all. We'd
yeah,
like to, but we can't.
yeah. It's kind of like an acceptance,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
just accepting that this thing is happening, but we can't own it,
No,
I suppose.
it's
Yeah.
not everything is for all of us, you know. I
Mm.
mean, we could talk about that for an hour. That just that,
I'm up for that.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah, so that's yeah, so if I see dogs in the street getting, I just have to go, yeah, cool. I
yeah.
will, I remember uh, talking to a dog trainer at a lecture, a seminar, and they were speaking to their mentor, and the mentor said to them, have you reached everybody in the world who's ready to receive your message yet? The message of positive training. And they said no. And he says, well, let's start with them, right?
Mm,
That's a lifetime work and beyond.
mm,
And if you keep that in mind, you then go, I don't need to worry about everybody else. So when I get stuff on my social media page, and people come on, and I've had three comments. I think I've deleted three comments today
mm,
from people turning around and saying, stick a prong collar on a dog. You're not my people. You're not my audience. I need to reach my audience first,
mm.
and the people that
Yeah.
are on the fence, hopefully they'll fall onto our way of thinking. Uh, and I cannot have the energy to be able to deal with the toxicity of everything else.
No, and obviously, of course, the more attention that we put on it, the
Yeah,
more it becomes, and that's the energy taken from the gentleness and the
yeah,
kindness,
yeah,
our own energy taken into fighting and
yeah.
arguing, and it does nobody any good at all, does it?
No, no. And having the ability to recover from that ourselves. So if
Mm,
so even as on a more practical basis, if your dog is jumping up and your adolescent dog is jumping up and grabbing the lead and grabbing your hands and your sleeves because they're frustrated, overwhelmed, over aroused,
mm,
been out too long, haven't been out yesterday, tired, hungry, thirsty, cold, whatever,
mm,
and you're being assaulted by a dog that weighs 25 kilos that can't control themselves emotionally, your ability your grit actually to be able to go, yeah, cool, I get this, and yeah, you nailed me a good one there, and we're going to try and recover from that. And
mm,
I had somebody yesterday, and it's rare that it happens, but a client was going through the same thing and really bellowed no at their dog and kind of harshly corrected them, which is so rare for me. And I said, you need to get control over that.
mm,
It's not your dog's fault. I get that you're having a hard time here, but it's not his fault.
mm.
And you bought the dog,
You've
So
got no choice.
no, you did it. You brought that dog into your life, step up to the plate, you know.
Yeah, yeah. What would you say to people who did, because I see it quite a lot, people that come to my work and they have done the other stuff and they've been misled in the wrong
Yeah,
direction and then they're carrying guilt um for how they treated their dogs, but they got there in the end.
yeah.
And nobody's perfect, nobody. And what would you say to those people who are carrying, I did this to my dog and it's really uncomfortable for
Um,
me?
and it's easier said than done. You got to try and let it go. So
Mm,
there's the work that I've done on myself in the last 10 years, actually, and probably more like 7 years. Um, you've got so it's stoicism that that I tend to follow, which is been described as Buddhism with an edge. All right.
Mm. Yeah.
And the so the Buddhist practice would be to be present. So the past is done, and there is nothing we can do about the past. Nothing. It's gone,
Mm.
and the future has not yet happened. So worrying about the past or feeling guilty about the past, worrying about the future, and what it holds is getting in the way of what you're doing right now.
Mm.
So having the ability to reflect on what we've done so that we can say, I'm not going to do that again. But even if you lose your temper with your dog, and in the moment, it's then catching yourself and being like, taking that breath. I will tend to apologize to my dog immediately.
Mm.
Sorry, lad. Yep, cool. Take a deep breath. That's done. What we're going to do now. And the recent past, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds ago, is still the past. It's still gone.
Mm.
And then resolving yourself to go, when I see it coming the next time, I'm going to stop before I get to that stage.
Mm.
So the recent past, what people want to do is rewind the recent past. That's where corrections come from, I think. Like to
Mm.
stop and rewind like Superman and go, that needed not to have happened. Well, it did, and there's nothing we can do about it.
Mm.
Um, and then the more distant past, so that what we've done with our dogs, our previous dog since, 10, 15, 20 years, previous 30 years, is then saying, yeah, I know I didn't know then. It wasn't good enough that I didn't know then, but I know better now. And and can you forgive me? You know.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
there was I think it's Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander somewhere, and their death ritual is, there's four parts to it. Is Oh yeah, so it's four parts. I love you. I'm sorry. I forgive you, and please forgive me.
Mm.
And those four parts allow healing.
Mm.
You know.
Yeah. Thinking that, and thinking about like what you say about people losing their temper, they might lose their temper with their dog. We're not very good at feeling our feelings, are we, unless we practice it,
Yeah,
unless we actually actively go in and
yeah,
feel our feelings
yeah,
and put effort into
yeah,
feeling it, because we've created this idea that good feelings are good and bad feelings are bad, and actually,
yeah.
but for me, and it's never clicked with me before, do we actually punish or blame dogs so that we don't have to feel the feelings about how we feel
Oh,
about
definitely.
ourselves
Yeah,
at the point that it happens?
yeah, yep, yeah.
Um,
The short answer. Yeah,
and then that in itself, is that why we have people going out and blaming dogs because they don't want to look at their own shame or
yeah,
feeling about themselves?
yeah. Uh, if you look at Gabor Mate's work on, Gabor Mate?
Mm.
And when I mean, even if you don't read his books, find his podcast that he's been a guest on, and he's fascinating to listen to. And he talks about addiction, and addiction being what we do consistently in the moment to relieve a feeling that we
Mm.
don't want to have. All right.
Mm.
So the most things, with drink, drugs, gambling, work, overwork. So,
Mm.
addicted to work, shopping, uh, endless scrolling on social media, binge watching television, and on and on and on. And if your first reaction when your dog does something wrong is to punish, then that's the easy behavior.
Yeah,
And that's masking some of this. It's nice. I've never thought about it like that before, but I think there's a lot of validity in that.
yeah, yeah. It's almost well, it's a protector, isn't it? We
Yeah,
blame the dog, we protect ourselves.
yeah,
And the bravest, most courageous thing is to say, this feels uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I'm going to be here with this feeling uncomfortable.
We had the, if we don't look at ourselves, so what happened to you as a child and as probably, excuse me, as a child up until you're probably about 23, 24, if you're still living at home, certainly, you had, there was nothing you could do about that. Okay, so we
Mm,
can't take responsibility for our upbringing, but as adults, we take responsibility for how we feel and how we cope with our upbringing. All right, it's nobody else's fault now, right?
mm,
52
mm,
years old and you're still blaming your parents for what happened to you. Grow up, man, right? Just got, step up to the plate, own your stuff, and work out why you're feeling that way.
mm,
I think so many people have never even that phrase, that sentence that I've just said there, that would be completely alien to them. What do
mm,
you mean? That,
mm,
well, that's the starting point, or part of the starting point. I worked with a guy in jiu-jitsu, and every time he made a mistake, every time, every single time, and I would, when I say correct him, I actually correct him to say, can you do it that rather than do that, this is the way you'd like, and every single thing, but I just thought that, right? I was trying to, and all of those are excuses from, and
mm,
it was like looking at a 5-year-old who
mm,
had been caught doing something. Oh, I just thought I had to do that. And what they're trying to do is say to you, don't shout at me. And I just used to, because I don't have to, I'm not a counselor, I'm a
mm.
jiu-jitsu instructor, right? I just blank it and go, just do it this way, pal. Okay, right? And I just shut them up. Shh, shh, shh. Just do it this way. Okay.
Mm,
I don't really care about how they're feeling about it or what excuse they've got of not doing it. Can you just do it this way because there's 30 other people in the class? And but with our dogs, when the dog does something, I know the biggest one for me with so Sonny, I've had him for a year, and he's a big Staffordshire Bull Terrier cross, so he's 38 kilos, probably crossed with. I don't think it's Labrador, but I think it's probably like Canny Corso or American Bulldog. Like, so he just looks like a
mm,
massively blown up Staffordshire Bull Terrier. And he's a personal space invader. So if I sit down on the floor and his hips are sore. All right, so
mm,
he's got a degenerative condition in his hips, and I actually just think he's uncomfortable a lot of the time. So he's on pain medication and a whole bunch of things. So if I sit down on the floor in order to try and settle him, he will violently take my space. So shoulder checking, climbing up on top of you, but it's not in a nice way that a collie climbs onto your lap. All right,
mm,
done
mm,
violently, and it's not violently as in it's just that with that amount of energy, and I can feel it. I can feel it just now talking about it. It flashes across my back, my muscles tingle, my skin, and I have to settle myself because I sat on the floor. I invited him to do this behavior. He doesn't know what to do other than what he does.
mm,
But that's one of the things that upset me, that being physically pushed around, you know,
mm. Yeah.
and I have to go, yeah, cool. That's what's happening with me. And I don't, sometimes I'm like, and I know I'm impatient with him sometimes, depending on how I'm feeling and things, but I have to say, mate, you can't do that. You need to sit and settle and I'll hold you in place and just relax into that position. But
Mm,
it's having that knowledge that that's my reaction is caused by how I'm feeling about it, not by him. You know, you've muted your microphone just because your dog's in the thing coming.
can
There
you
you go.
hear him? Can you
That's
hear him?
very briefly. I could hear his footsteps, but no, 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 not at all. No, no.
Yeah, they're wild. And you just touched on something beautiful there, and it is, can we stop? It is how many people, like I'd say most people in the Western world, they feel something and it's someone else's
Oh
fault.
God, yeah,
They
yeah,
just simply cannot own it,
yeah,
cannot, because again, it's too difficult to look
yeah,
at. And with you saying, I own that. That is my thing. That is my responsibility
Yeah,
to hold my feeling. Um, I'd say like 85, 90% of people would be like, this dog's doing this to me,
yeah,
or
yeah,
this person's doing
yeah,
this to
yeah,
me, or this post on Facebook's doing this to
yeah,
me. And every single one of them is an opportunity to learn about
yeah,
ourselves.
yeah,
But actually, we're so scared to do that that we blame.
yeah. Because it's easier. I think about cheap behavior versus expensive behavior. So energetically expensive, emotionally expensive. Uh, it is energetically expensive for you to learn anything new. All right. Learning how to play piano takes time and effort and dedication. Going in and practicing your chords when you don't want to in order to get your reps in. Now that's learning something. That's not stopping something. Right? So that's energy takes expensive. So if you want to teach a child to be able to settle, so use my own upbringing. Thinking of like going to mass as a child, right? I don't know anybody likes going to mass, right? I really don't. See if any, right? And I'm not. I have my own views on organized religion, but I'm being respectful to people who are listening to it as well. I don't know anybody that likes going to a Catholic mass at all. They're such grim affairs. Even the weddings are terrible, right? And they're just so long. And and it's not even the hellfire and brimstone because we moved away from that like in the 1960s. They're just glum, right? So solemn. So for a 3 or 4 or 5 year old, what is there here? Now that's part of your discipline of growing up, right? I get it. But we weren't allowed to laugh, talk, look behind us, okay, fidget. Uh, You weren't allowed to toy. You weren't allowed a book. Okay. God forbid you took any food in, like food or drink, right? And see, when my kids were younger, I was yep. And we stopped going, and I didn't raise my kids Catholic after they were 10. And I went in and I was like that to when my son was before, take a comic in with you and sit on the floor and read your comic,
Mm.
right? Right. You know what I mean? Just sit quietly and read your comic for an hour, right? And because that's appropriate for a 4 year old.
Mm.
Now, the way I was, we were, if you didn't behave, you then get taken up the road and leathered, all right? And then you get stared at by my parents, right? And it was, or I would look up for their reaction, and then you would see my parents, my mum or my dad's face staring at the front because they'd had their own discipline, but knowing they were raging with you and you're going to pay the price for that in 45 minutes when you left. Now, that's not teaching anything. That's suppression of behaviors. That's don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. And the result is you sit there quietly. But where is the skill acquisition during that time? So if we are teaching our dog how to, so shaping a behavior, building a chain of five, a behavior chain of five behaviors or something like that, that takes time and effort and dedication. So you need to know you need to know what you want your dog to do. You need to know how to get them into that position. Your timing of reinforcement has to be bang on where you're delivering a reinforcement. So that's four things already, and that's only touching the surface of it. Versus, I can drag them into that position in a slip lead, hold them there, and then release the slip lead when they're in that position. Now, that's an easy option for the human because it doesn't require anything other than brute force and knowing the position that you want them in, the timing of when to release the pressure, I suppose, as well. But that takes significantly less energy and knowledge than teaching them positively. The dog's perspective from that dog pays the price in the second model. They're already paying the price enough in the first model because you've decided you're going to train that with them. So it's energetically expensive for your dog to learn that in the first place, which means that there's going to be some energy deficit in the next hour, 12 hours, 24 hours, whatever, until the dog is able to build fitness for that. And having those things in mind allows us to teach our dog kindly.
Absolutely. My dogs are shouting their heads off behind me.
You can't hear them at all. So your microphone will be directional, so you can't hear anything.
Yeah.
So don't worry about it.
Um, yeah, they've thrown me a little bit.
That's all right.
Um, um, so, because you've clearly done a lot of self-work, when you go and help a person with their dog,
Yeah,
are you actually seeing, because I've done a lot of self-work and I can kind of see patterns and
yeah,
protectors and helpers in people's behavior very quickly, very much like you go jiu-jitsu.
yeah,
There's a child in there wanting attention, there's a
yeah.
child in there wanting to be seen. Do you notice behind people's motivations their needs and their unmet needs and their needs to be seen?
Yes, yeah. Was there another part to your question? Because I went to interrupt you.
No, go with that and I'll
Okay.
I'll come back to it.
So look at who my responsibility is towards in that scenario. I remember this was so Logan, my last dog, is big, and he is. I can say that now that he's gone, right? So Logan was this pit bull that I had, who I lost last year, and he was a pit bull, and I remember putting a video up, and you'll know this person. I'm not going to mention their name, right? But they turned around and said, they said, I said, the comment I made is, I'm not accountable to you. This is to somebody else who was commenting on my stuff. Says, I'm not
Yeah.
accountable to you for for my behaviour around Logan or Logan's behaviour. I'm not
Mm,
accountable to you, right? I'm not accountable to anybody else other than Logan and myself in my relationship with Logan. That's it. That's where accountability finishes. And I'm only accountable. He's not because he's a freaking dog, right? So this guy comes on and said, "So you're not accountable to your clients?" I says, "I'm accountable to my clients when I'm working with them. Absolutely, but I'm not accountable to my clients." But he's only seen I'm not accountable to anybody and then run with that, right? Let's stop for a second, actually read what I've said and think about it before you vomit onto your keyboard. So when I'm working with people, I will ask them to do something. If they're having difficulty understanding it, I try and use human analogies to help them out. This is similar to when a human does this. Okay. You go to a party and you don't know anybody. How are you feeling? Okay. Now, you're now 40 years old. How is that? Better or worse than it was when you were 16? Just reflect on it. You don't need to tell me. I'm not interested. I'm not a counsellor. All right. Just think about it. Um, I am interested. I am and I'm not, because that could be a 25-minute interlude while we discuss that during a 1 hour consultation. But just say, just think about that. As you're driving up the road, think about how you felt. And you are an adolescence with 16 years practice being a human on a planet, and your dog's an adolescence with 7 months practice being a human, being a dog in a human world, right? So I do recognize it, but at the same time, because if they're struggling, uh, I'll go, right, is there a workaround here? So I try and be as, and I do, and I'm significantly better than I was 10 years ago. And how I'm communicating with people, I'm probably much more kind. And no, I am much more kind, much less direct, because my directness was born of my work in being in the police. It wasn't done from a place of unkindness. It was just done from a place of we don't have time for this. I just need to ask you the question, uh, without diplomacy. And but if I'm seeing somebody struggling, I'll say to them, "What are you thinking about that?" And they'll say, "The dog's been dominant." I go, "Cool, right." So what they're saying is, I think the dog has been dominant based on what I've learned previously. And I'll go, cool, right. So that's what you've told me, but the dog hasn't been dominant because he's 16 weeks old and he's peed in the floor, right? So that's not about dominance. That's just down to your dog not having learned to control his bladder, or a dog jumps up in the guests. That's not them being dominant, you know. Uh, Dog stole something off the counter. It was just there. It was just opportunistic, you know. So I will hope. I don't know if this is answering your question. Um, gently challenging them and then asking them to think about something in a different way. You've muted again, Sally.
Bloody 2 hours.
It's all right. Just leave it off. They're fine. You can't hear them.
I actually think that dogs highlight things in people,
Yeah,
and the dog will highlight something that we need to examine about
yeah, yeah,
ourselves.
yeah, yeah,
And yet as people we're so projecting, we're so us, we're so single-minded that we often miss a lot of what we can learn from our
yeah,
dogs.
yeah.
Um,
I said this last week, and because there's so many parallels, I see because I teach, so I teach in the mornings doing dog training
mm,
with our online stuff. I then teach my students online, and then I go and teach jiu-jitsu in the evenings. And I said last week to the guys in class, I says, if you're not learning this properly, it's because of the way I'm teaching it,
mm,
right? However, you need to listen, right? So you need to pay attention. So I assume motivation because they're here, they're giving me their time and their monthly membership fee. Um, and given that, I'll say to them, there's no, so I say to them, I don't think there's no such thing as a stupid question. If I say to them, if I've explained something 4 times, so one of the things we'll do is it'll be a timed round. In jiu-jitsu, you've got a top player and a bottom player because it's fighter in the ground. So I'll say
mm,
you're going to do 3 minutes top, and your partner's going to be in the bottom for 3 minutes, and then after the bell goes, you're going to switch round. Now, if I explain that 3 or 4 times throughout the instruction and I pause, I says, everybody know what we're doing, and somebody turns around and says, are we swapping round each time? That's a stupid question because you weren't listening, right? Especially if I've said it 4 times. So I have an assumption that you're going to pay attention to me.
mm,
With our dogs, I have to assume that they're not going to unless I motivate them. So I don't assume
mm,
motivation, but I do with the clients. You know, yeah. So can you are you able to listen to me here? And if you're not doing what I'm asking you to do, something's wrong with the scenario. I say this when I get engineers. My favorite clients are engineers because I just tell them this is a process. If you follow the steps of the process, we will almost always see the result. If we're not seeing the result, we re-examine the process until we get the result that we're looking for. The problem is with the process. The problem isn't with the dog.
mm,
Okay. Problem isn't with the machine, and it's slightly different. It's not a perfect analogy because the dog's sentient, whereas a printing press, for example, or a combine harvester is not.
mm,
But if it's not working, there's something wrong with our input. It's just that with the combine harvester, the only input is ours and the environment from cutting the crop, harvesting the crop. But with the dog, the entire environment is given
mm,
input, not just us.
mm. Yeah, absolutely. So, and we need to know that, don't
Yeah,
we? For the dog's sake, we need to
yeah,
be aware of that. Um, Otherwise, we place expectations that are not reasonable on the
yeah,
dog.
yeah. How long did it take? How many driving lessons did you have before you passed your driving test?
Ooh, I passed my test in the army, so
Okay.
I don't reckon I would have passed it if I hadn't been in the army with an army instructor. But
And
probably
how
about
was that? How was their instruction?
it was a civvy instructor and
Uh-huh.
it was a civilian examiner, but he was in the TA.
Okay.
So when I went up on the pavement on my driving test,
You get shouted at.
he said, we'll just keep this between us."
Well, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, but I don't know. Probably about 20.
Yeah. Because I was 26. I was 26 lessons before I passed my test. My brother was 8, my older brother.
Mm,
He passed it really, really quickly. And uh, I did my advanced driving in the police, so the traffic driving course, the 4 week one.
mm,
I failed it the first time and I passed it the second time. And if I'd had, this was interesting. I use this example as a lot. My instructor in my first course, I was his first course. There was another instructor on the course, Raymond, who was a phenomenal driver and instructor. He'd never had a fail. He'd been at police college for 3 years. Not one of his students had ever failed.
Mm,
And he had the highest number of class ones, which is over 85%. The pass mark's 75 and a class one's over 85. And he had the most number of class ones ever.
mm,
He was an exceptional teacher. If I and his I think he got two class ones out of his three students. If I'd have had him as my instructor, I would have passed
mm,
because he would have adapted what I was doing. Sorry, it would have adapted his instruction to what I was doing and what I was understanding. And when I failed the last drive. You get three drives in the first exam. I failed my last drive, and when the examiner said to me, I can't even remember what it was, but he said this, not that, and I went, "Oh my God, right!" And it just fell into place. It was the last piece of the jigsaw which made the whole picture,
mm,
and that's good instruction is being able to adapt that to your learner. So when people say
mm,
not all dogs learn the same, so somebody commented today and said that on one of my posts saying not all dogs learn with reward-based methods. They absolutely do. You just don't know how to do a reward-based method with the dogs that you're working with.
mm,
That's it. Right? They
mm,
do. We all work with
mm,
reward-based methods. Every single being on the planet works with positive reinforcement. Or sorry, can learn that way. And it's incumbent on us to adapt what we are doing. You know, if your dog likes more freedom, you use freedom as a reinforcer. Then you put the structure in place, which is putting it on cue or a stimulus control surrounding it.
mm. Absolutely. And I completely agree with you. If you don't think it works for a dog, you're not good enough at it.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not, you need to look at you. And we go right back full circle to where we started. More people need to look at
yeah. Look at
themselves.
themselves. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, Logan taught me a lot. I thought I was a decent trainer until I got Logan. And I was like, I have not got a clue what I'm doing with you, pal.
Mm,
He's so badly damaged. He had nightmares his whole life. And, he was so, so, so badly damaged. And the So I was like, oh, cool, okay. So I remember, I think The Martian was out, the Matt
oh
Damon,
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and he says, I need to science the shit out of this. That was really right. And I was
Yeah.
and that popped in my mind when I was working with him. I says, okay, back to the books
Yeah.
till I work. I need to work out what's going on with you.
Mm. And the amount of times that I have seen people that met a dog that changed the
Yeah,
trajectory of what they were doing
yeah,
and why they were doing it. And it's the good people, like
yeah,
the amazing people, the people that are having a really big impact, were led there somehow by a dog that they found difficult at
yeah,
the time and
yeah,
had to develop themselves too.
yeah, absolutely. And that's where um going back to our expectations versus our dog. I didn't have so Sonny doesn't like the traffic, does not like traffic.
Mm,
Uh, Not doesn't like it, is really frightened of it. And I stay on a main road. So it took me the best part of 6 months before he wasn't barking at loud exhaust going by the window. Now he's much more settled. He's doing better around walking along main roads or roads around traffic. He still really doesn't like it. He'll do it if I ask him to. I
mm,
don't need to have. I would like to be able to go for a nice big walk around my neighbourhood on a summer's evening. I would love to, because I enjoy doing it. But the big park that you see in my videos, the one that you see when I'm out with Sunny, it's a 7 minute drive from my house, right? And I
mm,
stay, and it's a suburban area, I stay, so it's not far. It's just all the traffic, like 7 minutes, and I can jump in my car and take him there, and we can go out for an hour and be nice and relaxed. So
mm,
why wouldn't I gift that to him? Because what I'm doing there is saying, no, you need to fit in with the model that I have for my life with you, rather than adapt what I'm doing with him.
mm,
That's then not an excuse to not train him because, say I broke my leg or something like that, I would have to we have to do some work to get you more comfortable so that I'm getting your
mm,
other needs met, and we're holding those in balance a lot. But if he was 12 years old, I would be like, we're not doing that. We're just not doing work around traffic. You don't need it. You're only
mm,
going to be here for another 2 or 3 years, and I'm not putting you through all that stress of learning and uh, in order to improve your life by 2 or 3%.
Mm.
When I can meet those needs elsewhere and being able to adapt. So people say, I can't take my dog to the pub because the dog's terrified of people and bites people. So you don't have a dog that you take to the pub. You don't have that
That
dog.
simple. It's that simple.
Right. And I get that it's shit and you're it's grief is actually what you're feeling, the grief of the possibility that
Mm.
this is the life that I wanted. I know, if you lost your leg, you would be grieving the loss of your leg, but you're also grieving the loss of what your life would have held had you
Mm.
not. And it's part of life.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't like the pub.
No, either do I hate it.
And and I would never go.
I
And if
know.
I did like it, if somebody that I kind of lived with liked it and took me, I'd be biting people.
Yeah, I know. I know. Yep.
It's just
Yep.
not that.
Yep.
So I get it, but people tend to not see beyond what they need when they won't look within.
Yep.
And I saw it today. There's a walk by me, and it's a loop in the woods and by the river, and like past the reservoir, and I only saw one dog and person. It's a big loop, it's probably about 3 miles. And the dog, both times I saw them going into the loop and coming out of the loop, she was just trotting along on the short lead. And you get that, oh,
Yeah.
oh,
Uh-huh.
oh. But then, as we say, you have to let it go, you have to
Yeah.
accept it and do what you can where you're at. But if only more people would look up why I need my dog to walk like this, why I want my dog
Yeah.
to, why it's important to me that my dog,
Yeah.
because there's lessons in that.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And why are we doing, why do we do anything? So why do we bring our dog into our life? Do we bring our dog into our life just so we can get whatever we want? Are we in a relationship because now ultimately I think yes, because I don't think a truly altruistic behavior actually exists.
Mm.
So if somebody runs into a burning building or, oh, excuse me, I get cramp in my leg. Um, the um, as a relatively serious example, the guy who tackled the gunman at the weekend in Sydney.
Mm.
People look at that and say, well, one, it was heroic. It absolutely was. Is it altruistic? Yes. Is it truly altruistic? No, because the pain of him not acting in that moment was worse than the pain of him acting.
Mm,
It caused
nice.
him actual pain, emotional pain to not act, which is why he acted.
Mm.
And all of us in all of our relationships and all of our interactions have that. We are trying now. You could be that in service of others, that not being in service causes you pain, but it's still about you
Mm.
because not being in service of others causes you some sort of consternation, which you want to remove.
Mm.
Just that other people are getting the benefit from it.
Mm.
You know?
And absolutely goes hand in hand with I matter too. I
Yeah,
have the right to matter.
yeah, yeah,
And I have no shame with acknowledging that I
yeah,
matter.
yeah. And on that, if you don't want to, that's absolutely valid. But if it's I matter, every relationship other than your children and your dogs is voluntary,
Mm,
right? Your kids aren't in a voluntary relationship with their parents. Okay, they're not. We
mm,
decided to bring them into the world.
yeah.
Our dogs, our animals, every other relationship is different. Economically, your working relationship is probably a little bit different because of what's going on in society. It's not you're just going to get another job. If only it was that easy. It's just not. Okay, which
Mm,
I get. Um, but yes, I'm after when I bring a dog in, but you brought the dog in.
mm,
You made that choice, you
yeah.
know. So
And you usually find that the people who can't see their value or they can't see that they matter would fight to the death for their dog or their children.
oh, I know, absolutely, I know.
But
Yeah, 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 yeah,
But yeah, I honestly believe that the root of things that we see people doing to dogs, that we see people doing to each other, is based on lack of personal work.
yeah, yeah,
And part of that is having a bad opinion of yourself, because
yeah, yeah,
that's the um that's the feeling, that the shame or whatever, that feeling that's been drilled into you, you don't want to face, so you put it on
yeah,
somebody else.
yeah. I say to
Yeah.
people, so I remember it was one of Brene Brown's podcasts, and she was talking about shame, embarrassment, guilt, and humiliation.
Mm,
So those four emotions are linked. And I say to people, if your dog's lunging and barking at the end of the lead at somebody else. So we did this yesterday. Somebody walked past, and I said to the client, I said, see that woman's face? She said, yeah. I says, is that woman's face, her facial expression, which is her reaction to your dog barking, does that bother you? And she said, yeah. I says, you're going to have to let that go, right? Um, the I could not care less. Honestly, I've got a really thick skin when I'm working with dogs. That if somebody tucks in, so in the thickness of my skin, actually, it used to be, what have you got to say about how I'm dealing with that? So that's defensive.
mm,
Whereas now I just turn around and say, that's entirely your view of me. That's got nothing to do with me. I'm just here,
mm,
right? Whatever your face is expressing has got nothing to do with me, because
yeah.
that other person is just walking past and not making that face. So that's yours. And then I'll say to people, so they get embarrassed, which I totally understand. And then I'll say to them, listen, and we hear a dog barking in the distance. And I say, how much time are you going to spend for the rest of your day thinking about that dog's person and how shit a
Mm,
dog trainer, a dog owner they are? And they go, none. And I says, I know. And that's what that person's going to spend their time. They're going to spend no time thinking about you after they've left. So just let it go, right? It's gone. People have got too busy. They're too concerned with themselves to be worrying about.
yeah.
They're not, taking to Facebook. And if they are, again, that's their stuff. Somebody barked at me today, Or did they really? You know, did they? A dog barked at you. Wow. You know, right. There's a
That's
war in
it.
Ukraine. Right, and a dog barked at you. You
Yeah,
know,
so exactly. And do you know Toby Grace? He's on
no,
Instagram. Grace Dog Training. He's young. He's amazing. He's an amazing
I'll send his
guy.
details.
But he said exactly the same as you've just said there.
Yeah,
I don't care if somebody's dog barks at me. I
yeah,
don't care if my dog barks at somebody else.
no, no,
And yeah, and exactly what you just said. People are going to walk away and never think about your dog
yeah.
barking at them again.
I think I remember a long time ago, my neighbour fell out with me over my dog, and they were in the garden. This is how they weren't pleasant people, and but the dogs would be playing out in the back garden, and they'd be running around playing, and it would be like kind of, when I say noise, not barking, the vocalization during play between the two of them.
Yeah.
And but this clearly upset them because they wanted an entirely peaceful life, right? So it went on forever. They just complained about everything all the time. It was just a horrible situation. And I was walking down the street one day, and I met my friend's sister and her husband, and we're standing chatting as the wife walked past and started on me from across the street. This woman, I was in my 30s at the time. This woman was in her 60s, right? And I just turned around to her and says, don't talk to me. Actually, don't talk to me. Just don't talk to me. See, if you see me in the
Mm,
street, walk past me. And she shouted at me and said that I was uncivilized. And I said, thanks very much. Right. And the point I was there is, if my view, if my, sorry, if your opinion of civility is what I have to fit in with, I want no part of it.
mm,
None. All right. And if
mm,
you think I'm a savage because of that, I really don't care, because I know that I'm not.
mm,
And the when people are looking at you, the judgment that you get when your 3-year-old is having a tantrum in the supermarket.
Mhm.
And you're like that,
Mhm.
nothing I can do about this. They're
Yeah.
free, right?
Yeah.
You know, and however you're feeling about that is on you
Mm.
to do with you. And you just, it's so, once you get your head around it, it's so refreshing actually. It's so
Yeah.
relieving for you to go, I don't need to worry about people's opinion of me.
Mm.
That's their business.
And it's only triggering them because it's in them, and that's the
Exactly.
thing.
Yeah. Yep. I know.
Um, it, it's nothing to do, like your opinion of me is nothing to do with
Yeah.
me, and my opinion of you is nothing to do with you. I do think you're great.
You don't know me well enough.
So, and I've kept you for over an hour, so
No,
we
no.
better
I'm happy
go.
to. Yeah. No, I enjoyed it. Thanks very much.
It's been an amazing chat, and honestly, we've been places I didn't expect to go.
Good, good.
And there's a depth to you that I've not seen or known before. So, and that kind of depth you don't see very often. So I've
Yeah.
really appreciated going there as well.
Oh,
So
you're
thank
welcome.
you.
Oh, that's kind. Thank you.
So you've got a school community, haven't you?
Yep. So in fact, everything dog training, I think it's called.
Yeah,
Well, it is called everything dog training.
yeah.
I don't know what let's see what it is. Yeah. So everything dog training.
And I'll
Uh,
put your social media and your school community and all of that together with the podcast. I'll pop it onto my YouTube and then I'll send you the link and I'll
thank you.
also put your school community in my school community. So if people want to come
Awesome.
along and
Thank you. Yeah, and it's a
uh,
free 7-day trial, so you're welcome to join for 7 days are free.
yeah,
Not expensive after that.
brilliant. So nice
Awesome.
to see you at last. Thank you very much.
No, you're welcome. Thank you.
And take care and have a good day.
You too.
Bye bye.